Welcome to the School of Rock Bottom podcast with Oliver Mason. I'm an actor, a voiceover artist, a performing arts school principal, and a mental health coach. And it's these careers and passions combining that have given birth to this podcast. And here's some interesting facts. Those working in the performing arts industry are twice as likely to suffer with depression and up to 15 times more likely to suffer with anxiety. And those working across the creative industries are up to 3 times more likely to suffer with poor mental health. So on this podcast, I'm inviting really amazing creatives who have incredible stories, who have lived through a rock bottom but have survived. These stories need to be told so that people know that there is always hope and there is always a way out. We're also going to be talking about how to protect your mental health whilst working in the creative industries. I'm really excited today. I've got an incredible guest with me. I've got the wonderful Mark Lockyer. Now, before I get into all of these amazing questions and everything I want to ask him, I'm just going to give him a little intro. So forgive me while I just look at my notes here, because I want to make sure I get this right. So Mark Lockyer is a RADA graduate. His screen work includes The Devil in the Soldier's Tale for BBC, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince and London Road, and TV includes Maxwell, Holby City, and The Fall of Rome. Now, his theatre career, which spans over 30 years, has involved working extensively with the RSC and performing at many theatres, including the Royal Court, the Old Vic, the Almeida Theatre, the Young Vic, Bristol Old Vic, and the Hampstead Theatre. In association with the Young Vic, Mark took his one-man autobiographical show, Living with the Lights On tour in the UK and abroad, and previous theatre credits include Vernon God Little at the Young Vic, The Madness of King George III and Ghetto at the National Theatre, and Hamlet at the Shakespeare's Globe. That's just to name a few. Wow. What a career.
It's all lies.
All lies.
I just wrote it myself, so it's big myself up.
Well, I did have a little bit of help. Mark, I'm just going to get straight to it, if that's all right. I've invited you on because you've got the most incredible story, and I think it's so important that people get to hear it. And I'm just going to get straight to it and ask you to take us to your rock bottom moment. And I know that, like with every guest, there isn't just one moment. There's a collection of them. There's many of them. I just wondered if you'd be able to take the listeners and the viewers to that moment. And I know you're an amazing storyteller. But try and describe to us how old you are, where you are, what's going on, and we'll really try to take us there.
I think I was maybe in my mid-30s, 35. I was at Euston Station. I'd bought a ticket to Dunleary in Ireland. And my intention was to get on the boat train and throw myself off the ferry. And there was an extraordinary moment about 20 minutes before the train was going to go. And I don't know where the voice came from, but it just said, "You can't do this anymore. You've got to turn around and tell someone." And I don't know why, but I did. And I went to a policeman and I asked for help. And I was actually arrested, taken to a police station, and then I was taken over the weekend. I stayed in the cells, and then on the Monday I went to the magistrate's court. I got myself into trouble with the law, clearly. And the judge said that I had to go to prison on remand for my own safety. And I remember sitting in Belmarsh prison in the hospital wing, because they knew I wasn't well, going, how did it come to this? How did it actually get to this? Because 2 years before, I'd been playing Mercutio at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and my life had just completely disintegrated, and I was totally powerless over it, and I didn't know why. So I think my rock bottom moment was probably sat on that hospital bed locked up, terrified, bewildered, thinking, I just don't know how this has happened. And that's it.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Mark. And I appreciate this is an incredibly hard question I'm about to ask, and very intricate, and you're not going to be able to answer it in one sentence, that's for sure. But how did you get there? Now, with the hindsight of time, looking back, if you had to summarize how you got there.
Well, the irony of the whole story, of that whole moment, really, was that what seemed like, a total negative actually turned into a fantastic positive, because I'd been calling for help for a long time through, GPs and whatever. I had a very severe, I was diagnosed in prison with severe bipolar disorder. Mixed state bipolar disorder, which just basically means you can be high and depressed at the same time. It's like a double whammy. And I did not know. And now in hindsight, I look back and, I'd probably been hovering over the illness for many, 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 many years. And it just happened. And because bipolar disorder is triggered by stress, it's no surprise that there I was at the Royal Shakespeare Company. I'd had a fantastic season in '93. The year before, got a lot of acclaim for the work that I did, and went back, and there were symptoms showing of odd behaviour and thought patterns,
right,
which just mushroomed at that point. And then when it's like a bullet from a gun. When the bullet goes, it falls apart very, very fast. And I was rendered incapable of looking after myself, looking after my hygiene, looking after a home, drinking, loss of friends, family, and bewildered. And it wasn't until that I was diagnosed. But I had to go to prison to get a diagnosis.
Wow. And how old were you then, Mark?
35.
35. And you touched on the fact that you were aware of some issues for a number of years, although you weren't diagnosed. At what age do you think it started when you thought that there might be something wrong?
Well, the benefit of hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? I think that as a lad, I was someone that was, completely hyperactive. And I remember I used to have to have days off school because I was just kind of bedridden with exhaustion.
Right.
The little shit. And but I think it was when I was about 17, and I went to RADA incredibly young. I was just 18 when I arrived.
Wow.
And it was very overwhelming. It's drama school is a very tough place for anybody, but particularly somebody young. Not sure it's got a great deal to do with acting, but that's another story.
You did very well to get in so young as well, because obviously they usually take people who are a little bit older, don't they?
They do.
Generally.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
Talented guy you are.
But I was committed. I wanted it. And I think they could tell that I really, really wanted it, and I did. But when I got there, I think the stress and the long hours and, my drinking picked up. What came first, my drinking or my bipolar disorder? It's irrelevant. One fed the other, I think. But I think I was genetically had an illness and didn't know. And I had my first breakdown at RADA, and I had to leave for 3 months. And, kind of in those days, we're talking about 1985, the mental health has revolutionized in terms of people's consciousness.
What help was available at RADA then?
There wasn't anything.
Wow.
I went back and I performed Living with the Lights On, and then did a question and answer with the students in 2020 or 2019. And, there was a Q&A afterwards. And I said, guys, when I was lying on what they called the matron's floor, there was an office rather than called the matron. The matron.
Who was the matron?
Who's the matron? She was actually Brenda. She was actually a very, very lovely lady, actually. But she was called the matron. But anyway, there's me lying on the floor having a terrible panic attack. And it was just, there was no understanding or facility going to a GP, you know, and then 10 years later, you know, going to a GP. And I said to the GP, I said, you know, I don't think I'm very well. He said, what do you mean you're not very well? I said, well, I don't think I'm very well. I can't sleep and I can't concentrate. And I've started doing stupid things. And, you know, it's like I've got no edit button. And he said, well, what are you moaning for? He said, you're Royal Shakespeare Company. You're playing decent parts. You know, you got your youth. What a fat lot of good that was. I mean, what I needed, and I can honestly say this with absolute clarity, what I needed was, you know, being taken away. I needed to be taken away from that situation at work and placed in a place of safety where I could get proper help and medicated and supported and diagnosed. But it didn't exist because I'm sorry, but I am a firm believer that, and there still is, we've got a hell of a long way to go. There is a fantastically fear and prejudice against mental health issues. It's got better, but believe you me, 1985, 1995, it just, you know, there was nothing. There was no counselling in drama schools. You know, now you go to any drama school now, and you go to your principal or you go to your facilitator, and you say, you know, I'm struggling, blah blah. There'll be support for you, and that's fantastic. You know, we're talking about young people here.
I remember when I was at drama school and they said there's a counsellor that you can speak to. And I remember there being like a bit of shock actually between the students. They were like, oh, wow, this is new. And actually a couple were kind of slightly mocking it, you know, and I remember it being quite taboo. And that was...
They'll be the first to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mark...
There's nothing wrong with me.
So Mark, you were effectively sort of untreated from... And it could be previous to you being 18, but it sounds like 18 to 35?
Yeah.
So that's a period of 17 years where you're flying from the seat of your pants, if you like. You're completely in the wind. What was that like?
At times it was wonderful. You know, I was probably high for a lot of it. And when I mean high, I don't mean high on substances. I mean high on, you know, for those of you who don't understand the rudiments of bipolar disorder, it is a mood disorder which is triggered by stress, and unless medicated, the sufferer will have extremes of mood which shift to the highest, which they call mania, where your behavior is, you know, you're living life at a very lack of sleep, living your life at 100 miles an hour, doing inappropriate things, sexually, personally, whatever, you know, you just don't have an edit. You just don't give a toss. You think you are invincible. I believed, get this, when I was at the RSC, before they all fell apart, I used to windsurf. That was my hobby. I used to go to an inland lake in the day and windsurf. I found it very... And I used to get these delusions of grandeur. And one day somebody came in. I came back from surfing and I was doing a show and I was having my tea in the green room. Somebody said, oh, we've been today. I said, oh, I've been windsurfing today. Oh, yeah, of course. Was it good? I said, yeah, because the British Olympic windsurfing team came up to scout me.
Right.
Get out of it. No, I'm going to be at the Olympics.
Right.
And I kind of believed it and also knew that it was a terrible lie. So I had this kind of delicious mixture of things. And I believed that I was the most brilliant, best Shakespearean actor in the country. I didn't tell anybody, just in case they put me right. But I believed it. And maybe for a couple of hours, maybe I was.
And it sounds like that mindset actually could really help you in your career, because if you're believing that and believing fantasy, that must be very ususeful on stage or on screen.
Yeah, people love confidence. People also don't like confidence because they think you're a big head. I did upset a few people. And I suddenly became really verbally witty. I suddenly, oh my God, it's like somebody's in my head. I'm coming out with quips and put downs and things like that. That's mania.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, and I hope you don't mind this question, but is there any upside, for want of a better word, to the manic stage? Is it enjoyable?
Yeah,
Just
it was
on some level,
fantastic.
right?
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, you become suddenly really. You feel that you're invincible.
Wow.
Who doesn't want to feel invincible? You feel you become incredibly attractive to women. You know, I was a younger man then. You know, and I was. It was great, and I played it.
And we know in science that brain loves homeostasis, you know, so if you take a mind-altering substance and you increase dopamine levels by, 1,000%, the brain will then deregulate dopamine receptors by 1,000% the next day. So, you know, you'll get a crash in the opposite direction because the brain likes to stay level. And so I'm imagining the crash that comes is as intense as the high.
Definitely, because you know, you go from living in your own film, James Bond. You know, I was climbing up drain pipes. I mean, I was up to all sorts of ridiculous capers, you know, and loving it. But there was no gap, or it was like black and white. That happened one day, and then in my memory, I'm lying in my bed. I realise it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I haven't got out of bed. I don't want to get out of bed. There are bottles on the floor or cans, the cigarettes put out on the bedroom table, just shit everywhere. And but also, so that, you know, the fall, I don't have a memory in my maybe of that descent. It just happened.
Just happened,
you know. But there was I suppose there was some moments where I just felt so out of control. Excuse me. So out of control, you know. There was one moment in Romeo and Juliet, a matinee, you know, running around and, you know, I know what we could laugh. I did nick that bloke sat the musician's saxophone and just arse about. And I was completely powerless to stop it. You know? And then the stage manager going, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I just don't know." You know, and then saying stupid things to people, you know.
Didn't you say to the stage manager, "You're Courtney Pine," or something?
Yeah. I said to her, I said some terrible things to people. It's like the edit button. It's like saying things that you really shouldn't say, but I just said it.
And how long would these episodes go on for? Would it be completely random, a manic episode and then a depressive episode? Is there sort of...
Well, in my memory, when it really went off, I mean, I look back, I think that pivotal point in 95, you know, it went up, and then it went down, and it went down, and went down, and then I end up in Belmarsh prison 2 years later or whatever. But I think there were episodes. I remember going on holiday on my own and a break from work, and being in a hotel on my own in some Greek hill in Corfu, and thinking and believing that the woman who ran it was going to come and stab me. Right. In the middle of the night, so I jumped out the window.
Terrifying, yeah.
I mean, I jumped out the window with my suitcase and got in a car and drove 2 hours back to Corfu town. I mean, it's not normal, is it? But when you're in it, it's easy for me to say now. It's not normal, is it? But it was very real, and you know, I've just had an incident in my home. A neighbour is a schizophrenic. Clearly stopped taking his medication. It started on the Sunday, about a week ago, letters through the post saying that I was interfering with his fridge and controlling his gadgets. I knew it straight away. There was an issue. And cut to Friday, where he's outside my house with a metal pipe down his trousers.
Oh, my word. Right.
Threatening to break my door down.
Right.
And the reason why I say that is because I know that guy's mindset is not because he's violent.
Yeah.
It's because in his head, he's so deluded, he doesn't understand.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just an enemy.
Yeah.
So it's coming from fear.
So you've got compassion and empathy, obviously, for that.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
So
It was a bit annoying and frightening, but I mean, yeah, ultimately, yeah. And in the end, I contributed to getting him sectioned and taken on some help. But what I'm saying is I share that story because it's the hell in one's own mind is the hell in one's own mind. You can't, nobody else can really live that. You can allude to it, you know, but that period going downhill, for me, what was so painful was I was so powerless over it. And I believed that I was possessed by something.
Right.
Because I couldn't stop it.
Your play, Living with the Lights On, which I saw at the Young Vic, absolutely amazing. And I've seen the film version as well. Absolutely amazing piece of work. And obviously it's autobiographical. You just mentioned one of the characters in the play, which I think you refer to as Bees.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He's sort of an American...
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
How you doing?
That's the voice.
Yeah.
And he's sort of wearing,
Hawaiian shirt.
Hawaiian shirt and the beach clothes and the sunglasses. And he's...
Do you want the story behind that?
Well, this is what I was going to ask you.
Why that occurred?
Well, you refer to him, I think, as the devil in the play and the film. And I just wondered what he signifies to you, literally, if there is a literal interpretation.
There is. I was driving out of Stratford one day. It was very early on, you know, clearly something was not quite right. Very anxious, very vulnerable. I was also living a double life because by that time I was having an affair with somebody in the company. So, you know, caught between thinking I was like Casanova and an arsehole. Probably more of an arsehole, really. But I was driving out and there was this pain in my head. And it was like I thought my head was going to explode. And it was so bad, I thought, I've got to stop. And it's the Warwick Road out of Stratford for anybody that knows it. And I stopped. And I indicated and I turned off and I parked the car and I walked down to the river and my head was just really thumping. And then this is what I saw in my head. There was a box and the box opened, the lid opened and this little fella got out with a Hawaiian shirt and horns and no trousers.
Right.
And that image never left me. So I felt that I was possessed. Of course, what I was possessed by was me.
Right.
But it was a version of me, you know. But in the play, what I did was I wanted to make the bipolar, the personification of negative, outside of me.
Right, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, and in a way, I kind of believed that. I do believe that there is my experience is that there is a very, very negative force in me.
Right.
That under the wrong circumstances, getting ill or boozing or taking drugs, that alter ego comes out.
Right. So is it specifically bipolar disorder and substance misuse? If I had to put it in a box, and I know it's not always useful to do that.
I think the exact word, Oliver, is comorbidity, you'll find. That is the clinical term.
I.e., you've got two things going on now. My diagnosis is I am, you know, I've got bipolar disorder, and I shouldn't drink.
Right. And if I'm right in thinking, you've not had a drink in a long time.
Yeah, I haven't had a drink in a long time now.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I think that revolutionized my life. My life got better when I stopped boozing and taking drugs.
Yeah.
Because you can't do it. Some people can't. Some people can do it. Can they? I don't know. I don't care about other people in that regard. If you want to take drugs and drink, good for you. If you enjoy it and you can get away with it, fantastic. Great. I love boozing. I love taking drugs. But I just can't because I've got a condition that alcohol is like, was it petrol on fire?
Right.
You know, if bipolar is the fire,
yeah,
alcohol is the petrol and it just ignites it. And
Can I use a quote from your play, the film, which I really liked? You say, "Everything's circular, no beginning or end, only interruptions."
It's the beginning, isn't it? It's the beginning.
Yeah.
About the story.
And I just wondered, in terms of addiction and mental health, that's how I interpreted it when you said that. And obviously how I interpreted it and what you meant might be two different things. But you say, where does everything's circular, no beginning or end.
Yeah.
Just only interruptions. And I just thought the bigger question, and I know we spoke about it earlier, where does bipolar and addiction start and finish? Is there a sort of a link on that journey, or would they both exist regardless? Or do they only exist because of each other? I'm throwing a lot of questions at you there in one. I appreciate.
With the greatest of respect, Ollie, I think that's a very, very difficult question to answer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a clinician. The fact is, my experience is, it just is. I've just got it.
Yeah.
And, and being an alcoholic, recovering alcoholic, I thought that drinking helped bipolar disorder. What came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And and in my mind, it's like one continual flow of event, just going around and around and around without ever stopping. So if I was to start, it wouldn't be at a beginning, but merely where I choose to interrupt, i.e. I could come in at any moment in my life, and that would be a beginning.
Yeah.
Of all the elements that we've already talked about.
Yeah.
Any moment in my life would be informed by all that we've talked about. So it just...
And that chicken and the egg thing is obviously something that a lot of people, the work I do in rehabs, for example, are very interested in. They might identify that, anxiety has always been there, or depression has always been there, and that they've used substances to self-medicate to deal with that. And I think it's something that people go on their own journey to work out. But like you say, it's just your experience, and it's just something, that's happened, and it is what it is. And sometimes overanalyzing these things, I'm guessing what you're saying isn't always helpful. Just kind of accepting what is more helpful.
If it's helpful to that person, it's helpful to you, Ollie, or anyone else, that's great. To me, it's not that helpful, but that's because of the kind of person that I am.
Yeah.
I'm not a kind of... the theory of something,
gotcha,
the opinion of something gets right up my nose most of the time about anything. There's too many people who think. Just feel and do. Take action. Just do. Experience. It's like, I'd much rather hear somebody share their story and I can identify with that than somebody read from a textbook.
Yeah, yeah.
You said about mixed state bipolar disorder. Well, you could go and get a book off the shelf and read all about it, but until you've really experienced it, you're not going to have a fucking clue. Just not. So
what was the key then for you for getting better? What was? I mean, it sounds to me feeling your feelings, reaching out, getting really honest. What would you say that really, really helped you get back on your feet? Because you've got a great life. You're very busy with your career. We know each other personally, and I know how well you're doing. And for anyone listening or watching, what would you suggest that they do if they can relate to any of your story up until now, and maybe they haven't reached out for any help?
Sure. I often say to people, particularly with any kind of mental health issue, and of course, mental health issues can range from, I've got quite a severe one, but, somebody just might be having a bad couple of weeks. Somebody might be in grief. Somebody might be anxious, very understandably, about a new job or whatever. But if it's becoming overwhelming and getting in the way of, and it's difficult to be able to cope, I've always said the first port of call is really simple. You go to your GP.
Right.
GPs now are armed with information about places you can be referred to if needed. They have a greater understanding of short-term, long-term medications, if required. A good GP is just not going to give you pills for the sake of it. They don't want you on medication, but some people might need it to help.
Mm-hmm.
I take medication. If I don't take my medication, I'm going to get sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's not going to be the case for everybody. But go to a GP. But you asked me a much larger question. That's the first port of call. Share it. Talk to your family or friends. Reach out. Don't sit alone in isolation with... when I watched this poor man who ended up with a metal bar down his jeans on Friday, I've been watching that guy for a long time. He's very, very isolated and very, very lonely. And nobody should feel cut off and isolated. Really be brave and call for help, because once you make that first step, I think things just become easier. And it's incredibly simple. It's not. The action of it is incredibly simple. Maybe the decision to make it is not. But there's nothing to be afraid of. There's a lot of help out there and a lot of support, and there is absolutely no shame. It's taken me a long time to accept, because there was a lot of prejudice against me and a doubt about me, about Mark, he went nutty and he made a fool of himself. I don't care what people think anymore. I quite frankly don't give a shit, because I don't need validation from other people. I just don't.
Yeah.
And the people that really love me, of which there are many, and the people I really respect and care about, forgave me and held me and wanted to give me a second chance, because I went to those people and shared that this is what had happened. I was struggling, Fear comes from ignorance. But, I think it's, in a general sense, what helped me, because I feel that, because we're talking about a period of the bipolar, but, what I did do, because I had ended up 8 years later after getting well, of falling apart again because of my drinking.
Right.
Because I wouldn't accept that I had a problem with alcohol.
Right.
So when I fell down the second time and had to come to terms with alcoholism, as bizarre and as odd as it sounds, I made a decision that I just wanted to live. It is as simple as that. Did I want to spend my life living in hostels and psychiatric hospitals, of which, believe you me, I've spent a lot of time in, and wonderful, bizarre, fantastic people in those places? There's also a kind of a wonderful creativity. I feel like I've kind of seen the darker side. Not the darker side, but the other side of society behind the curtain that nobody really sees. And believe you me, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's just people are really vulnerable. And I realized how blessed I was by seeing people who were never going to get better.
Right.
So it came down to the decision. What do you want, Mark? Do you want to spend your life dying spiritually in these places? Or do you want to keep on drinking and die? Because when I put alcohol in me, what happens is, very simply, is that my behavior becomes bizarre because it clicks into those weirdnesses of bipolar disorder. And, I had 4 suicide attempts in my using. That's the other thing. People with bipolar disorder and alcoholism try to kill themselves. And I tried it 4 times, and the 4th time I nearly managed it. I sit here today and go, I cannot believe that I would have had the desire not to live my life, to end it. It's like abhorrent. But that is where I ended up at times.
Sorry to interrupt you. Why did you not go through with it, do you think? What is it inside you?
I did go through it. took various overdoses, and the last one nearly killed me. It got me in time.
Wow, I actually didn't know that, Mark.
No. 4 times over the years.
Yeah.
Once I made the decision, no, I do want to live. I want to act again. I want to make love to a wonderful, beautiful woman again. I want to go on a date. I want to go on holiday. I want to earn money. I want a home. I want the things that I had before that I'd lost. Even though there was no prospect of that. The only prospect I had was just don't drink a day at a time. Very slowly, incrementally, my life began to get better. And it got better in a way that I couldn't control.
Right.
And that is why recovery is so difficult for people and why many people don't get it. I'm talking about alcohol now specifically. It's a given that, I had to take medication and stuff, but
Yeah.
is because you have to have some faith that it might get better. It just might. And as I know for myself, sitting in rooms of recovery rooms, going, I really don't feel it's going to get better today, but I'll give it another go tomorrow. But it does get better. And in a way, it's all about desire. It's all about what you want. But it was fundamental to me to live. I remember my first date, I think I'd been sober for about 2.5 years. And I took this beautiful lady out to the theatre. It was just fantastic.
And Mark, you talk about passion and purpose as being a thread. You talked about, I want to act again. I want to see the sunrise again. And I think that is absolutely key, isn't it? With all, whether it's recovery or mental health, finding that passion and that purpose. Because I've always had, performing as a great passion of mine. So have you. And I think that plays a big key in people's lives generally, doesn't it? If you can find a passion or a purpose, whatever it might be, it will supercharge all those moments that you might go through. I just wondered what role performing arts played in the years that you were undiagnosed. Because obviously from like 18 to 35, you're undiagnosed and I think I used the word earlier, flying by the seat of your pants, either appropriate or inappropriately, I'm not sure. And I just wondered, it sounds to me like performing arts really must have helped you.
Oh, it was everything.
In your 20s.
It was everything.
Yeah.
I've always, I knew I wanted to be an actor from 11 years old. And I knew I wanted to go to RADA when I was 12. I remember saying to the careers teacher, I'm going to RADA. Oh, yeah. No, I really am.
Well, not many people get in, Mark, so I'm glad it happened for you.
No. But what I'm saying is, I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I was incredibly ambitious. I was incredibly driven and incredibly passionate about what I did. And I was lucky enough, to come into the business at an amazing time. The back end of that last generation of those major actors, the last vestiges of the repertory system in this country, when theatre was a real art and craft in this country. It's kind of got... I'm not going to go down that road because I don't want to say anything that's going to upset anybody.
You're not a TikToker, Mark, no?
No, I'm not. No.
I didn't think so.
No.
From what you said.
No. But it was wonderful. It was wonderful. The thought of packing your case and going off to some rep and doing a job and meeting new people. I just loved it. And I think that was one of the pains that was so painful when I started to get ill and didn't know what I was ill, was to see, there I am at the RSC and I'm playing these wonderful parts and it's slipping through my fingers and I can't help it.
And when that episode happened in 1995, which you document very in a lot of detail in your play and in your film. How long did it take after that, quite public in the sense of people that were working in the industry, the theatres and the directors and maybe your agent? How long did it take you from that moment in 1995 to kind of get back in the room, if you like?
5 years.
Wow.
5 years, yeah. I went to... My first interview was with Mark Rylance, actually, at the Globe. And he looked at my CV and there's a big gap here, Mark.
Right.
And I went, gulp. I went, shall I tell him? And then I told him.
Right.
And then he gave me the job.
Wow.
And it was all right. I was back on stage, yeah.
Do you think he was testing you to see if you'd tell the truth? Do you think
No,
he suspected?
No,
nothing
not
like that.
I think he was just genuinely.
Oh, I see.
I don't know where have you been for 5 years? What have you been doing?
Mm.
Don't forget though. In those 5 years, I wasn't
Yeah.
like bedridden in a hospital or
No,
anything.
no,
I went
absolutely.
and trained as a patisserie chef.
Wow.
I worked as a chef in a French restaurant for 3 years. It was the best thing one of the best things I've ever done in my life.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I'm going
I was
to be banging on your door for some pastries.
Yeah.
I tell you.
I worked as a chef.
Wow.
I loved it. It was the first job I'd ever had in my life. That you turn up, you do your job, and you go home. You don't take recipes home and study it and learn them and think, how am I going to do that?
Do them in different accents.
Yeah, do them in different accents. And then on Friday night, which was brilliant, they just give you the money in a brown envelope in cash, and that's it. You blow it Saturday and Sunday, and then you start again on Monday. I loved it. And then when I went back into the theatre, it was like, this is all a bit weird.
This is a bit weird.
Ponces.
And you wrote your play, I believe, in 1999.
I did.
But obviously it didn't, get out on stage till a few years later. What was the delay? Talk me through the journey of 1999. You've written the play to it actually going on at the Young Vic, because I'm assuming that's quite a.
There were a handful
journey.
of people that were very supportive of this play. The National Theatre Studio were fantastic. They gave me a space to rehearse it up and play it. Mark Rylance was brilliant. He gave me, in what was now the Sam Wanamaker, we did a few shows in there. Erica Wyman at the Gate, she was running the Gate Theatre at the time. She gave me a couple of performances. But the bottom line was, over the 3-year period before I put it in a drawer, I realised that I couldn't get arrested with that play. Because at that point, mental health was not really... were not really in plays. People didn't really write about it. Joe Penhall did, Blue Orange and a few other plays. But actual autobiographical work, no. And also, I was a marked man, wasn't I? I was like the loon from the RSC. Hang on, well, you want to tell a story about going bonkers at the RSC? Not on our stage, you won't. There was a bit of that, And then I put it in a drawer, and in 2003... And I went off, and I remember my lovely agent said to me, she said, Mark, do you want to be in, it's not happening, is it? Nobody wants it. Do you want to be in plays on your own, or do you want to be in plays with other people? I said, well, and quite frankly, with other people. And that's what I did for the next few years. And it wasn't until 2015, I was working with the Actors Touring Company, and the artistic director asked me about bipolar disorder. I said, I can't be asked to tell you about it. Read the play. And I read it. And he said, this is fantastic. He said, why don't you perform it for us? And I performed it in the Actors Touring Company's offices by the water cooler. And as soon as I finished, he said, we're going to tour it.
Wow.
And we toured it. We did a little tour. David Lann, who was then the artistic director of the Young Vic Theatre, had seen the showing that I'd done at the National Theatre Studio many, many years before. He saw it. I'd performed it for him privately with his administration staff, and gave me 3 nights at the Clare. We sold out. And then at the end of that year, he offered me an official press night and a 3-week run in the Maria. And the rest is history. We took it off to, I think it's toured the UK twice, Europe twice. One of the best moments of my life, and I've worked in some great places with some fantastic people, but let me tell you, it will never beat a standing ovation in Barcelona with 300 people.
Wow.
And Madrid. A play about the capers of a lunatic. I'm putting myself down there. You know what I mean. It was just fantastic. But this country was in a kind of a stalemate until, I don't know, 95, 2000, 2005. Yeah, maybe around 2010. And we live in such a fantastic culture now, don't we? We can talk about anything. Sexual politics and... Well, it was fantastic.
We'll start a podcast on that. That sounds good.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that there was people, and you know, why is mental health still so unfunded? You know, why do they close down community homes, hospitals and stuff like that? And these poor people, like my mate with the metal bar, you know, no help. It makes me so angry. And it's because it's not sexy. It's sexy in the theatre. You know, suddenly mental health really got on my... I'm not going to say it would be rude. It really got on my nerves, you know, that all of a sudden, you know, mental health got really sexy, you know, theatrically. Yeah, well, it's not sexy. It's just an issue that is really important.
And you hear people say it, don't you? Sort of flipping it. They say, well, you know, things are much better now. You know, it's all out in the open. People are talking about it.
It's a bit better.
It's a bit better, but it's nowhere near enough. Yeah. And I think people that don't really understand it will go, well, you know, you're talking about it now in the workplace.
Yeah, people are two-faced. Oh, yeah. Yes, it's so much better, isn't it? Oh, he's a lead. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't buy into that bullshit. It's great that it's on the map.
Yeah.
It's great that people have been able to, you know, and I feel really proud that, you know, I was part of that initial movement that has helped, you know, all theatres in London now have the facility for, you know, pastoral care for their actors, you know. Because mental health is, you know, in your introduction, it's really important. Performers live on the edge, and we need holding. But that was never there before. You know, you go to RADA now; those students have got counsellors. Drama schools have got counsellors now. There never was. You know, you go to the RSC now; you have to fill out a form and talk to a nurse about it. I never had that when I was there. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's important.
Things are moving in the right direction. But
in the right direction.
To do. Yeah. And that's why conversations like this is so important.
Yeah, but I still think there's a tremendous amount of ignorance and fear and prejudice about it because it's still it's such an unpredictable issue. So, you know, as I was looking at the guy in the hallway, you know, got carted off. You know, I dealt with it. I was very calm, but I realised, oh, God, it's a bit scary because it's so unpredictable. You know, what is it? You know.
Yeah. And, you know, the stats that I read out at the beginning around mental health within the performing arts industry and also across all the creative industries, there's a lot of evidence that shows that that we're suffering, you know, a lot more than the general population. And obviously someone with your experience and background, you're, I would guess, more on top of these things than maybe the average person. You know, when I'm speaking to performing arts students, you know, who are training, maybe they've just come out of drama school, maybe they've been out a while, they all report high levels of particularly anxiety. I mean, it's across the board, but particularly around, you know, auditioning, around, you know, self-taping, not hearing back, and all of that. Have you got any advice for people that are just struggling generally?
Yeah, look, the fact is that, you know, I can't speak for drama schools right today, but I do know that when I was at drama school, nobody prepared me for what it would be really like to be a professional. And the business has changed. There's much less work around. There is, I think, a pressure to screen work, film, TV. There's lots of streaming platforms. The focus of our business has changed. When I left, it was about the theatre.
Mm.
And indeed still today, all those TV people that you see in films, they come from the theatre.
Mm.
Those casting directors go to the theatre to see them. Blah, blah, blah. I think there's a tremendous pressure to succeed, to be amongst. I remember as a younger actor feeling very, one's self-worth is akin to what job you're doing.
Right.
If I'm working, if I'm doing this, then I'm,
Would you say it's important then not to define yourself by your job title?
I do. And I think it's very
Right.
important that the individual, I would say to somebody who came to me and said, I'm really struggling, I say, really value yourself and your own gifts. You are not going to be everybody's cup of tea. It is, in the great scheme of things, you are going to live with rejection as an actor.
Mm.
You are going to live with it. It is a given.
Mm.
But your rejection is nothing to do with your talent.
Mm. Mm.
Your rejection is because your hair's too short,
Mm.
or his ears are too small, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's just so many variables. Oh, it doesn't quite fit with Mary because she's playing Elizabeth Proctor. I don't know, whatever it is, So it's accepting that rejection is painful, but rejection is painful, but does not have to equate to being self-critical.
Mm.
So, as somebody once said, and it was funny, if I go to the gym more, will I get better parts?
Right.
Well, quite frankly, let's just work that one out. Let's not. You get the point,
I wish it was that easy, actually, because
if
I would just go to the gym more.
Yeah, it's about luck, accepting that luck and the moment is, and it's the same thing you asked me about getting well. You've got to have faith. If it is something that you really, really want to do, you will take the difficult times and just keep doing your best.
Mm. Just
keep taking action. Look after yourself. You said, tidy rooms mean tidy minds.
Mm.
Make sure your home is tidy and clean, and you're eating well, and you're exercising, and you're seeing friends, and you're having something of a life,
And all these things you're talking about now, how you continue to look after yourself.
Yeah.
Because obviously you've mentioned the medication that you take previously.
Mm.
Those things that you just mentioned, would you call those the other things that keep your recovery
definitely
in motion?
Yeah. The actor is a business.
Mm.
And it's not just about the business of acting. It's about, you have to look after your business. You have to look after you. You have to be, it's a whole package. But you've got to accept, and believe you me, after 38 years of doing it, it really fucking hurts sometimes. You just go, I didn't get that. Or why didn't I do that? We live in the world of self-tapes now.
Mm.
I did a movie last year. The director said to me, he said, do you know how many people I saw for your part? I said, no. He said, 60. Oh, what? He said, 60. Oh, fucking hell.
Yeah, I did one a couple of years ago, and he told me that he'd gone through 5,000 tapes. Oh, no, he hadn't gone through them, but he'd got 5,000 submissions through.
Yeah.
This
is the world we live in.
Yeah.
But I do believe cream rises if you've got talent.
Yeah.
And the part is right for you. I think it's about managing expectations, really, as an actor. It's about what is right for you. What is meant for you. You won't miss.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Live with the rejection, but don't be self-critical. It's all about love. Really, Ollie, it's about love. You've got to look after yourself, love what you have, and be grateful for what you have. Sometimes I think to myself, do you know what? I got up today. I made the bed. There's clean sheets on the bed. There's food in the cupboard. I've hoovered. It's the best I can fucking do today.
Mm. Mm.
But I'm comfortable. Because I've lived a life where I didn't have that.
Yeah. And I think when you've gone through such dark moments that you clearly have, I would imagine you see the light a little bit brighter than most people when it's shining in your eyes because of that.
Yeah, I do, but I haven't turned into a saint. Some days I get it totally fucking wrong. I just think, oh shit, I can't cope. But it's just the day. I always come back to put arms around yourself. Be kind to yourself. Forgive yourself. All right, so you've made a mess of it. All right, I didn't get it right. It's okay. Or when I don't give a shit about what anybody else thinks about me. I don't. I used to. Oh man, I used to. I don't. Because I've realised people are just worried about themselves. It's a full-time job looking after me.
And you talk about love, and I think that's a great way to end, actually, because I love you, and I love the fact
And
that
I
you've...
love you.
And I love the
And I
fact...
love the lady that's doing this. I don't even know her. I love her.
And I'm so grateful that you've come on here and shared part of your story with me and the listeners and the viewers today. And, you know, I wish I'd have booked this studio now for 3 hours because I felt that we could have just carried on and on and on.
Just be kind to yourself. Just be kind to yourself. You're your own best friend. That's what I've learned.
I love that. And is there any chance that we might see your play make a return to the stage? Because I'd love everyone listening to this and watching this to be able to get the opportunity to see it. Is there any chance it might come back on a stage somewhere in the future?
Everything's always possible, Ollie.
Love that. Love that. And you know what? If it does make a return to the stage or the screen, I'll announce it here, absolutely, to let everybody know. I'm afraid we're out of time, Mark. I just want to thank you for just being so honest and inspiring. And I'm just so grateful that you've come on. And we'll leave it there, and we will see you on the next one. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye.